Hi, my name's Andrew McLaren, and I want to help you memorize polyatomic ions using a mnemonic and visual that were generated using AI. So we have the mnemonic here. Each one of these words represents a polyatomic ion, and so each sentence is a charge. So like all these polyatomic ions have -1 charge, all these have -2 charge, and all these have -3 charge. So we're going to talk about that mnemonic as well as a trick for ammonia and ammonium, as well as carbonate. Those do come up pretty often. And besides Nick, Sally, and Phil, which is nitrate, sulfate, and phosphate, ammonia and carbonate are probably the ones that you're going to see the next often. So the main characters, Nick, Sally, and Phil, are your main polyatomic ions, in addition to these other things that the mnemonic doesn't help as much with. So in this video, we'll go over a little bit more about that mnemonic and the AI images, that trick, and then I'm going to show you the whole conversation with ChatGPT, as well as the prompts that I used for the Wowzer images to see how that was generated. Oh, by the way, I was given free access to Wowzer. I'm part of their ambassador program, so this is not really like a paid promotion, but they're definitely helping me out, giving me access to their product, so I'm using that here, and I wanted to be transparent about that. All right, so here's the mnemonic summarized with the polyatomic ions written next to it. You can see that nitrate is Nick, Clumsy kind of sounds like chlorinate, and bromate even sounds like brother. Cyanate, not so much, but it looks a little bit like Kant. Um, and what is really neat is that nitrate's in here as well as nitrite. So it's got the 8 and the I of that common polyatomic ion. So you see Nick and Nu, that comes up twice. And then we've got Sally and salads, that comes up twice. We also have phosphate and phosphite. Phosphite is a lot less common. And so is arsenate. So I was thinking a version of this that might be customizable to your class, and what you want to emphasize is to just drop the word art, and it could just be Phil paints. And there's other things where you might adjust this slightly, but this is when I'm working with students tutoring, it's most of the time it's focusing on like nitrate, hydroxide, maybe nitrite, sulfate, carbonate, sulfite, and phosphate. Those are the main ones. The other ones are less important, to be honest. But if you can think of Nick as like a 3-year-old and Phil and Sally as 4-year-olds, that will help you remember the number of oxygens on the 8 polyatomic ion. And then the ite is just one less than that. So you can see NO3, that Nick's 3, and then nitrite is one less than that. So it's a little bit less. So these words, it may seem like this is a bit of a stretch, but like I've worked with students and I've used this, and one of the students that I used this with, it was like night and day meeting with them after we'd gone over this mnemonic. Like 3 days later, they knew all of the words here in this mnemonic besides like 2 of them, and was able to identify the most important polyatomic ions and their charges, like all of those. There was a couple that they were struggling with, like I think chlorinate they didn't know, and like manganate and oxalate they didn't know, but I probably wouldn't know those. So don't worry about some of these. They're less important than other ones. This is just kind of helps you process of elimination, figure out, okay, well, where am I likely to be if you can remember this mnemonic. So this mnemonic is useful, but what really helped my student memorize this, who went from like not being able to do any of these to being able to pretty consistently do polyatomic ions within like a couple days of learning this, were these images. So these were kind of funny, silly images where I asked Wowzer to generate images of like a 3 and a 4-year-old to show that these are little kids, and came up with Phil painting, probably one of my favorite images of Phil here. And then I think that this must be Nick and this must be Sally. So she's having a salad, but she's got a paintbrush. It's a little bit off, but it's funny, and it helps you remember Phil painting for sure. And Sally with her salad, and maybe Nick a little bit with him being acrobatic or silly. Then I gave it the acronym just to see what it would generate images wise, and it tried to write out the acronyms, and it got kind of close. This is an issue with like all AI platforms that I've seen. Wowzer here you can see is getting some stuff from Stable Diffusion and other AI platforms like DALL-E, and all of them are struggling with like writing out the mnemonics, but they're getting like a lot of the words, and it's getting better. But then it's like, what? What's that? That's not a word. But I really liked this image because you can see Sally and her cousin, who's a bit of a grouch, or he's cranky. So you've got the cranky cousin, but they look like pretty good salads. But I don't know why he's got a paintbrush. It's kind of a little bit AI weird still. And then it should be Nick's brother here, but this is showing acrobatics with Nick, so I think that's pretty good. And then Phil's painting art down here. So those images really helped us, both the student and myself, really remember what goes where. Some of the images were more useful than others, but if you can do something like this, it will help you memorize almost anything if you can get some visual. So yeah, there's Nick, Sally, and Phil. They've got their 3 sentences. And we've got these visuals to help us remember what the action words are that kind of go with them. So that can help you build the sentence. So for ammonium, that polyatomic ion, it has a +1 charge, and it looks like this, NH4+. This is the main polyatomic ion that has a +1 charge. Most polyatomic ions have like these negative charges on them. There are some others that have positive, but this is going to be the one you're going to see in like even high school chemistry. They're going to expect you to know what ammonia is. So ammonium. So this is ammonium, which has the longer word, and then ammonia isn't a polyatomic ion, it's just neutrally charged. You've got a nitrogen, 3 hydrogens, and a lone pair. And you can imagine if you were to put an H+ on that, you've got 4 hydrogens. And the whole thing has a +1 charge. So the ammonium is the bigger one. It's the bigger name, it's the bigger chemical with the other hydrogen on it. So that's how I remember ammonium. It's not ammonia. And then we've also got carbonate. So if you have CO2 and water and you react those, you're going to get carbonic acid, which, if you think about it, this is what carbonate is, and you can see that it's got 2 hydrogens that you gotta lose to get carbonate. So this is kind of like if you were to break the carbonic acid down and have it give off both of those H pluses. That should help you remember the charge on carbonate is -2. And then if you can think about this as carbon dioxide and water, you know that there's 3 oxygens, and that can help you with the 3 oxygens for carbonate. So that's like your main one besides nitrate, sulfate, and phosphate. It's gotta be carbonate. So if you can get that number of oxygens on that as well, then very, very good. This could be the cousin who's 3 years old as well within the story if you want to give the cousin an age, and that might help you remember it. Yeah, that's just about it for those other little tricks. So to finish this off, I wanted to show you the conversation with ChatGPT to make this conversation. I will have the whole conversation linked, so if you want to go through this at your own pace or share parts of it, then you'll be able to get the link, the URL in the description down below of this video. So this is kind of like the first pass of like it trying to figure out patterns. And I wanted to find a way to group as much stuff together as possible to make like a sentence. And, you know, this could be done a number of different ways. So I was thinking, let's just do it by charge and see if we can build a mnemonic that way. ChatGPT might be able to come up with some other mnemonics for grouping things by the number of oxygens in them, but I decided to go with it this way. And it got something that was okay at first, but it needed some work, as you can tell. Like it didn't have as much of like an interesting story that you could like imagine relating these 3 different things, because it was just making the -1 charge. So I wanted to do something for like -2 charge. It gave me something kind of works. I really didn't think it was very good though. Like what we ended up coming up with is a lot more memorizable because you can kind of imagine those three people and kind of relate across the three. So it gave me something then for let's make a mnemonic with things for -1, -2, and -3. And this is getting closer to what we're trying to get. But then like Nick sipping phosphoric acid, it's like this is okay because that's Nick, Sally, and Phil. But I prefer having the three names. I think that's more memorizable than what's going on here. So there's also the stories, the quirky stories that it's trying to help you memorize these things. I did not find particularly useful, but I like the idea. It definitely is an interesting idea. So we're getting a little bit closer. And I thought that this was like an actual sentence. So I was like, okay, this is getting better. So can you give me something kind of like that? And then there's a platypus partying at the nightclub, which I mean, I guess that kind of works. But this is when we got something that was a little bit better. So I wanted there was a few things that were missing, I think, yeah. And so I was like, can you add all of the polyatomic ions? It didn't because it missed ammonia, which should be a +1 charge. So that's kind of my fault for limiting it down to -1, -2, and -3. But this is very close. But then they've got sulfite as apples. Like, what? Why? It's kind of random. Like, I think there's some like I don't think sulfite in apples. I'm not sure. But like if I was thinking apples, that's gonna correspond maybe more to like arsenate or something like that. So I said, please adjust based off of those, and then it gave me something. You could, I mean, this works fine. I think that could be better instead of the what was it, the new Acrobats? But then like attend isn't even in the sentence. So like you gotta be careful. Like these mnemonics, it's giving you some good words and something to kind of build off of. And then look, orange salads. That sounds familiar, right? And then Phil's painting. That also sounds a little bit more familiar. But then it's got phosphite on there twice. So like you gotta use your brain. You can't just like go with what ChatGPT is giving you here. But if you work with it collaboratively, you can get something pretty useful. So you could probably build other mnemonics for other topics in a similar fashion. I've got a whole video on how to memorize anything using ChatGPT or AI, and it essentially is showing a similar summary of this, but with like different examples. And using the visuals was a big focus in the other video, a little bit more than in this one. I think it was on molecular orbitals as well, so it's not as transferable to as many people. But I think that this AI stuff is these mnemonics. Their usefulness is very limited because how long are people going to need to memorize polyatomic ions in a world full of AI? But it's really interesting seeing the patterns of like what is working for me and what it's trying and doing that collaborative process. I think that a lot can be learned from this process, even if the polyatomic ion trick may not last forever. There's a lot that you can kind of mine, so to speak, from this type of approach with AI. But yeah, let me know if you got any questions. Thank you for McLearning with me. Before you go, please check out the following services that I offer with my business. So if you click the link in my videos, this goes to my website. I might be changing it from Podia because I'm no longer doing the interactive videos for sale. I might put those up for free. But most of my other services are linked here. So you can see that I've got like a Teachers Pay Teachers and a Wyzant. The Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of my assessments that I have for like the NGSS, as well as lessons that I made when I was actually a teacher in the classroom. So I've got quite a few things like CERs and other things on there. If you want to get one-on-one live support from me, either like with science or like working on like teaching support lessons and that kind of stuff, you can sign up through Wyzant. I have a link to there where you can contact me there. And we can schedule hourly appointments. And I've got a few other things on here like a Facebook page and other social media. And if you're interested in getting professional development with me for like a team of teachers, a whole page with information on that. So yeah, feel free to check that out. Thank you.